What is going on, YouTube people? Today, we are going to discuss a little Disney Lorcana. Has Mickey Mouse himself come out of his little castle and killed the golden goose that was a very popular TCG? It's been a hot minute since we talked about Lorcana on the channel. They just had their first major event over the weekend, this past weekend. The prize support from that challenge event that they had are selling for astronomical sums of money on the secondary market. The game seems to be doing pretty good overall. So, what has the mouse done to undercut its very own game? They didn't send a full cease and desist, but they made a request of, I believe the gentleman's name is Pavel, who owns and runs a software platform called Pixelborn. And what this was essentially a fan-made online way to play Lorcana. And a lot of people used it. I think I saw a stat floating around the Facebook group about millions of games played over the course of a weekend logged in the system, and it is a very accessible way for people to play, to make content, to test decks, to try out new cards without having to go to an LCS, which they might not have one, or a local LGS rather. They might not have one close to them. They might not have people in the area that play. So this was a good way for that. Now, Disney has every right to do what they did. This was not a Disney run product. There's obviously intellectual property stuff on there. I'm sure there are some lawyers on both sides that can make a case on why they're allowed to do this and why they are not allowed to do this. But the creator had always stated that if Disney requested it, he would shut it down. And Disney has finally requested it. So the app, the program, the software, whatever you want to refer to it as, will be closing down. So why does this matter from a card perspective? The TCG of it all has to be successful and has to be popular to keep prices up. There will be a certain aspect of collectability to the game because it's Disney characters, but a lot of that still drives down to the playing. That still drives a lot of popularity. The player base keeps people interested. And Pixelborn was a big outlet for that. So, though Disney had every right to say, hey, great product, but you shouldn't be doing this. This is our intellectual property rights. This is our stuff. Please stop. It may have really, I'm not going to say killed the golden goose, but they clipped its wings for sure. And I could, you can make the case for both sides. Like I said, Disney being on one side and then the player base being on the other side. And boy, oh boy, is this a polarizing issue. I've always joked that Lorcana Facebook groups are some of the best entertainment value on the internet. And they have been spectacular over this, with people arguing you should be at your LGS grinding out games in person like we used to in the 90s when Magic and Pokemon first came out, that's how I did it. I was a very big Magic the Gathering player, very competitive, never pro tour level, but state level, back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was in college. And I played a bunch as a kid. I remember you'd play at lunch when I was in middle school back in Revised. That's how you test your decks out, or you play against yourself when you're at home. But the online outlets allowed for the game to stay alive. It keeps people interacting with the game when they wouldn't normally be able to. It helps breathe life into it. It helps build excitement into it. And they have basically cut that umbilical cord off because they don't have their own product to put out. It's not like Disney has a Magic Arena, a Hearthstone, a whatever version of this ready to rock and roll that's hitting the App Store tomorrow because they want to monetize it, which is perfectly fine. And I've seen a lot of people online already being like, well, this is crap that I can't play the game for free online anymore. Like, be realistic, people. And a lot of people were saying, oh, Disney should just buy Pixelborn and then it'll be fine. whatever Disney does, even if they bought Pixelborn, they cut a check for it, they hired the guy, they bought the software, they improved it, guess what? You're not playing for free anymore. 95% of these companies are going to monetize that product. Now, it might be free to play, but there will be some monetization to it. You're going to have to put money in there if you want access to every single card. I can guarantee that. Now, some games have more legs with free to play or not. I know I played Arena for a really long time and never really spent a penny on it. So there's definitely ways that you could play without having to dump a ton of money into it. Now, to stay current, whole different story. But neither here nor there. Has this move, or will this move, drastically impact the player base? Drastically might be extreme, but I definitely think it's going to have an impact. Like I said, these online versions of these games that could be potentially difficult to gather and play in mass on a regular basis is a great outlet to build that community and excitement for the event. And I have firsthand experience with this. I was a very competitive Star Wars Legion player pre-pandemic. For those who don't know what that is, it's a tabletop miniatures game produced by Fantasy Flight. It's like Warhammer, but Star Wars minis. And I qualified for Worlds, whole 9 yards. Then the pandemic happened, that got shut down. But that game, to play in person, you need a table, you need terrain, you need about 2 hours. To play a single game is about 2 hours, plus probably a little bit more with setup and everything. So to go play an event with even just 3 rounds was a 6 to 7 hour day. There was a tabletop simulator version of it that is extremely successful. It was very, very well done. And I believe, I haven't played for a very long time, I believe still up and running. And that tabletop simulator mod, in my mind, kept that game alive and really helped build its popularity. There was a massive community that surrounded itself around that tabletop simulator mod. Extremely active Discord tournaments, the whole 9 yards. The best players in the world were interacting on there on a daily, if not hourly basis. Testing decks, talking theory, meta, whatever, the whole 9 yards. That is very, very important to a game like this, especially in its infancy state still. Now, Lorcana's a little past that, but it's still in the, we're trying to find our legs a little bit. And, I will 100% stand behind that TTS mod for Star Wars Legion helped elevate that game to where it was. Now, did some players probably just play the TTS version and never spend a dime with Fantasy Flight? 100%. But the benefits of the amount of people that played on there and then took their hard-earned money and bought product, bought sets, bought whatever to go play the game in person was extremely high. And I have to imagine that's the same exact situation here with Lorcana, but on a much more popular scale. Lorcana is way bigger than Star Wars Legion ever was. Just the nature of a TCG versus a miniatures game. But the general concepts here are the same. So this is really going to hurt things, in my opinion. A lot of people will lose interest because, in the past, they could be like, it's raining today. I'm going to go crank out a couple games of Lorcana, go try out this new deck. It gets them excited. They're interacting with the community. They're watching content. Now an event's happening at their local LGS. They want to make sure that they get out of it, test out the new thing that they just did online and buy the singles that they need. And, all that kind of stuff plays together. The other thing that I imagine it's going to hurt is, and I'm not in the weeds on Lorcana content, but those digital platforms like that are amazing for content creators because it's a very easy way to show off gameplay, how to play certain decks, what this card's doing, how this interaction works. There's a ton of content that could be made around something like that with a digital player like that. And I saw the same thing happen with Star Wars Destiny, which was another Fantasy Flight Star Wars game that had a TTS mod. That was a card/dice game that people did content around because they had easy access. As a content creator myself, I could tell you right now, the amount of work required to set up to record a physical game of Lorcana would be 1,000-fold compared to just recording a screen capture of a game that you're playing online. So that's going to drastically change the Lorcana content that's being pumped out. And once again, this all plays, we talk about it on the sports card side of things all the time. These things like this are a giant ecosystem. They all feed into one another, whether it seems like they're related or not. They typically are. This is another perfect instance of this. The content being created around decks and cards and how to plays and all that stuff feeds the excitement of the community, which then takes that and then they go try the same stuff out either in Pixelborn or in person. And the stuff that they're doing in Pixelborn excites them to go play in person at a local LGS with their friends, their community members, whatever. And then that excites them to go to official sanctioned large scale events like the challenge event that they just had. So while I get it, Disney was absolutely in their rights to do this. I feel like it might have been a mistake to swing it this early. If they had a digital version of the product ready to rock and roll on the back end, that would be a little bit of a different story. If you were like, hey guys, we have an official thing coming out July 1st, this free version of Pixelborn is directly going to compete with that. We can't have that. We got to ask you to shut this down. Then, sure, you can 100% see that. In this case, was Disney in the right to do it? Absolutely. They were absolutely in their right to do it to protect their intellectual property. However, it might have been penny wise, pound foolish, because this could drastically hurt Lorcana in the short and medium run until they come up with their own solution for this. Because being able to play online for a game like this is extremely important for the content, the testing, all that stuff, and let alone just people wanting to interact with your game and not having an easy outlet to do that. Not everybody has an LGS down the street that they could go play at. So this could have a significant impact on Lorcana, which means it would have a significant impact on the Lorcana market. Sealed boxes, wax, cards, singles, the whole 9 yards. If people go, you know what, I'm done, screw this, and shove in the towel and just sell all their stuff, which could happen. Even if they don't sell all their stuff, but if they just stop interacting with the game, that will hurt it at minimum temporarily. It could bounce back and be absolutely fine. Maybe this ends up being much to do about nothing, but I thought it was an interesting topic to talk about because it could potentially have implications on the sealed market and things like that for anyone that dabbles in it. And I also kind of had a unique perspective because I have used one of these digital tools for a different game. So I kind of understand why and how something like this, though the company is in the right to shut it down, has very positive effects for the community and the overall health of your game. Curious for your thoughts, and always down below. Catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.